Welcome back. Now, many are asking when there will be justice for those who raided and captured South Africa's state-owned companies. Well, this week, Eskom emerged victorious in its battle to recover 600 million rand that was paid to a Gupta-linked company, Trillian, under dubious circumstances. Eskom initially sued both Trillian and consultancy firm Mckinsey for the payment of more than 1.6 billion paid to them for consultancy work that produced little and seemed to be about benefiting cronies. Mckinsey paid back 1 billion in July following a settlement with the prosecuting authority in Eskom, but Trillian held out. Well, yesterday the Pretoria High Court declared the payments made by Eskom to Trillian unlawful and invalid. Let's discuss. We're now joined by the Deputy Editor at the Financial Mail, Sikonathi Mantshantsha. Great to have you with us, Sikonathi.
Thank you, Francis.
So the new Eskom board is trying to unravel years of mismanagement. How important is this court judgment in that process?
It's a great start because there is now a court finding that contract was unlawful and invalid. So the money must be paid back. Remember, the executives that did this were always insistent that there was nothing wrong. There was absolutely nothing wrong in that. Mckinsey turned its back on it and repaid the money plus interest. And Trillian, the one without even a sham contract, as sham a contract as the Mckinsey thing, held back and said, we're not paying. Now there is a court ruling that says that was unlawful, which means really illegal. So the court did not define what the illegality was. Yeah. It confined itself and it said, of course, there was a corrupt relationship between Trillian and the Gupta entities and Salim Issa and the executives at Eskom that did this.
Is it enforceable, though? Will Trillian pay? I mean, they've been claiming all along that they did some work for Eskom.
It's definitely enforceable. They had the opportunity at court to show the judges, a full bench of judges. You don't just have a single judge here. You have a full bench of judges agreeing that this contract with Mckinsey, Trillian did not have a contract with Eskom. It just received money.
Yeah.
A contract with Mckinsey is null and void, unlawful. So will Trillian pay? It's up to Eskom now to make sure that they can enforce the judgment and get the money back.
Okay, so you've alluded to the issue. The work wasn't done. Trillian was paid even though it didn't have a contract with Eskom. All unusual. Just remind us of this dubious sort of deal.
This transaction goes all the way back to 2014, in which Eskom decided it needed, together with Mckinsey, let's repeat this, with Mckinsey, they decided Mckinsey was going to help Eskom develop a consulting engineer's capacity inside Eskom, and it was going to help Eskom develop a project management capacity inside Eskom. And they entered into two contracts. One was a master service agreement, which was meant to deliver this. Very little was done, and alongside Trillian emerged out of nowhere. It moved from a company called Regiment's Capital, which had been doing business with Mckinsey at Transnet, of course, with the help of Brian Molefe and Anuj Singh, who at this on this occasion had now been transferred to both of them to Eskom to do this.
And 1.6 billion was spent. Eskom is not in better shape for that, definitely.
No, 1.6 billion rand was not spent. Was stolen from Eskom by its executives and given to Mckinsey and to Trillian. It was not spent.
To do nothing
It was
useful.
not earned even by Mckinsey. It was stolen by Eskom's executives, and they are named in the documents, minus the word stolen. But that's what it was, and it was paid over to Mckinsey. When it became too hot for Mckinsey, they returned the money.
It's staggering. So you're saying the word stolen is not used. I mean, what's
Absolutely.
the next step? Because remind us firstly, who were the board members and executives who allowed this to happen? And will this judgment go any way to seeing them on their way to jail?
So when you talk about jail, that is a criminal matter. This is a contractual obligation that Eskom backed out of. It went to court and made an application and said, please help us declare this contract of ours that we signed null and void and illegal. That the court has done. Eskom has already said over many years that it has laid multiple charges of corruption, fraud, and embezzlement against its own employees and against related parties, I assume here including Mckinsey, but that's a criminal matter that the police don't seem to be doing anything about. Certainly they have not visited any of the people that whose charges have been laid against. Eskom has fired or pressured those people to resign. So whether or not anyone will be prosecuted for this is entirely up to the National Prosecuting Authority, it's entirely up to the police. And to date, there is no evidence that they have done anything about it.
And is there enough evidence of corruption rather than just an invalid deal, really?
Take this out of this ruling. The court says there was definitely a corrupt relationship between Machela Koko and Anuj Singh and Salim Essa and a company called Sahara Computers, which paid for their accommodation to the Oberoi Hotel in Dubai. It was an all expenses paid. This is the court saying that in 53 pages. It says there was a corrupt relationship between Machela Koko, Anuj Singh, Salim Essa, and Sahara Computers, which arranged the trip and the visas.
So this is the trail to the Guptas.
Yes, and the court says the only inference that can be drawn from that arrangement was an intention to defraud Eskom.
Machela Koko's name comes up a lot. So does Brian Molefe's name, both former CEOs. Anuj Singh, always there as a chief financial officer of Transnet, then Eskom. So you're saying, as far as you can tell, no major moves to go against them personally in a criminal capacity?
Eskom has said repeatedly it has laid charges against all the executives implicated. In this particular transaction, there's about 14 people that worked on it, that in Eskom's own board minutes and things, including the board member, in addition to the board members of the board tender committee, people like Zatembe Koza Ben Ngubane and a few of them. Eskom says it has laid criminal charges against them. Now, we do know out of the Zondo Commission why the police have not acted, but that's a separate matter, a criminal matter. All the monies now, this 1.6 billion rand, has the court has found was null and void, that contract. It said it was a result of unlawful activity by Eskom's own executives.
And let's remember that Eskom initially lied about this and said there was nothing that wasn't above board. Have those people moved out? Are we getting the truth from current Eskom executives?
Eskom, about this particular deal, lied and said, I quote, "We have not paid a cent to Trillian. We now know it is 600 million rands, and it was $1 billion to Mckinsey." And Eskom, of course, not only lied to the public, but lied to Parliament, and together with the Minister of Public Enterprises at the time, Lynn Brown, they all lied to the people of South Africa and said, there's no such deal. We have not made such payments. We now know 1.6 billion rand, and 1 billion rand has been returned after media pressure by Mckinsey back to Eskom on this same deal.
But the current executives, are they being honest?
It is the current executives that have taken this to court and got this outcome to say, we want the money and we want this contract declared null and void and unlawful. So this is the executive chaired, the board is chaired by Jabu Mabuza, and there's people there like Neliswe Makubane. The outgoing chief executive, Pagamani Hadebe, was the deponent on behalf of Eskom of this particular affidavit in the court process. So they have helped unearth, confirm what has been in the public domain, definitely in the media. We'd been writing about this for 5 years and more.
So like you say, you have been writing about it. You've been following it for a long time. Do you think we understand the depth of the rot at Eskom now? Has it come out?
And for 5 years I have been saying this is treason, not only just fraud and theft by Eskom's executives. This is treason against the Republic of South Africa and its people. Do we understand the depth? If you don't, listen to Cyril Ramaphosa tomorrow at the State of the Nation. Add the 69 billion rand that Tito Mboweni has already allocated to Eskom in the next 3 financial years. Add the 83 billion rand that you and I have paid in cash and loan write-offs in 2015 to Eskom. Add the 523% increase in the price of electricity over 10 years and ask if we understand the depth.
And that's money that's not spent on housing, social services, and not going into our
That is
pockets.
money coming from you and I, first out of our pockets, and secondly, money that could be spent on these services that you have mentioned, and indeed building power stations. Electricity can go off anytime. The fact that it is not is due to lack of demand. And why is there not demand? Because Eskom cannot supply. And guess what? There's no rule of law. Who is going to invest in a country where people can just come, steal money and give it to their friends?
All right. So, well, thank you for the bleak but in-depth analysis. And yes, some money coming in, Eskom retrieving some of those funds if Trillian is forced to pay, but no sign of prosecutions yet. That was Financial Mail Deputy Editor Sikonathi Mantshantsha.